everyone. Welcome to the Your Life Unfiltered podcast. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests to connect the dots between their upbringing and what they're doing today. Today, we have special guest Sean Gajjar. Sean, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Ketul and Deepam, for having me here.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Good to have you.
Awesome. Sean, if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit more about your early upbringing, early motivations, and, try to connect with what you're doing today? Where did you grow up, what kind of environment, and so on, and how that kind of led you to do what you're doing today in some way or the other?
Yeah, sure. Of course. Where do you want to start? I'm a unicorn, is what people say here now. I live in Austin, Texas, for those of you who haven't heard the term too often, but I was born and raised here. So have lived here my entire life, and I've got to see the city grow from being a small little, 15 minutes gets you across the town to 15 minutes is a blessing if you made it somewhere. And I've been around a lot of family. So, I grew up with both of my parents and my younger brother. He's just a year younger than me. So my dad was a very funny and athletic guy, actually. So he would keep us active all the time, playing basketball or sports or cricket, whatever it is. And my mom was a very family focused person. She was super smart. Like she is she did microbiology by trade, in her college, but she ended up actually pursuing more real estate stuff, which is kind of what led into my story of how I ended up in real estate as well. And my younger brother, he's just a year younger than me, and his name's Nishan. He's awesome. Both of us kind of grew up acting like twins, even though we're a year apart. But I think he had me grow in many ways that I wouldn't have otherwise, just because we are kind of polar opposites when it comes to personalities. So yeah, I think I had a very enjoyable childhood. I'll say that for sure.
Got it. And what are you doing now?
And now I work in I do some software. So I work as a software engineer at a startup here in Austin called Data.world. We're working on some really cool new product called a data catalog that is kind of getting more popular nowadays. And I also run a real estate brokerage with my mom. So it's a family business and it's just both of us. And both of us are real estate brokers, and I help people, build their long-term real estate portfolios, whether it be like their first homes or investment properties, as well as we have different expertise in commercial and multifamily as well.
That's awesome. And so would something from, in your own words, right, do you believe something from your life experiences growing up encourage you to want to pursue software? Or is that how do you fall into entering into the software industry space?
Well, actually, it's pretty funny. I didn't go directly into software. I didn't feel like going directly into software. And as a kid, you always have those little dreams where you're like, I want to be a firefighter or a policeman. And it starts there. And as you start to experience more things, you start to figure out what kind of things you want to try. And for me, it actually wasn't that first. It was I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to see space.
Nice.
And it's and now it's, as I'm seeing all the, things going on with SpaceX and NASA, even there's been a lot more focus on it more recently, but that's super exciting to me. And as a kid, that's all I wanted to do. My dreams were a little crushed though, when I learned that you needed to, or at least I was told, and I just believed it at the time, that you needed to go to space. And here I was with my glasses and they're only -0.5. Will I get away with it? But that wasn't the case. So it started there. But eventually I got into dancing and stuff too, for all these cultural functions that we would hold. We'd have, our family was very active with the Gujarati Samaj. And, I was pretty active in our Jain community as well. To give a little quick background, my mom grew up Jain and my dad grew up Hindu. So I got a little bit of both the entire time I was growing up, and that allowed me to get a lot of exposure to different communities and different groups of people. And so through that, I took part in a lot of cultural programs with my brother and some of our friends, and that made me want to be a dancer and an actor after that. So nothing close to software. Doesn't feel like it's going to go anywhere in that direction. and honestly, those dreams didn't quite die. They got expressed in different ways, and I kind of managed to, or happened to find ways that to continue kind of fulfilling those. Maybe not the astronaut thing yet, but hopefully someday.
Hey, you never know. You still got your life ahead of you. One day you can make that happen, right? Get into space
I,
somehow. Maybe
you're
not
right.
as an astronaut, but you can do one of those space tours.
Exactly. Like I know, Keithel, you say this kind of stuff all the time, which I love. It's like, don't let it go. Like you can still make it happen. It's up to you to, keep working towards it. Like don't give up. And I very much believe in that as well. Maybe it'll be space tourism. I'm totally fine with that. I would just love to I'd just love to see space.
That is absolutely awesome. Okay, so tell us a little other aspect of your life. So how did you kind of get started? You spoke that your mother was already working on it as a profession. So, but how did you get into it? Did she ask you? Did she pull you in, or was it your choice or your interest as well? Kind of a bit of both.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. What happened is around like I think around 2000, like her youngest brother, so like my uncle, he wanted to just so he could have children and raise them around my brother and I. And he was very entrepreneurial, like right away. And
Hmm.
and so I got to see firsthand, like when he moved here, he was a software engineer by trade, and he started his own chain of grocery stores here in Austin called Gandhi Bazaar, and eventually like these restaurants called Curry and Hurry. And seeing him like
Hmm.
build that business and like how he interacted with people and the way he shared what he learned and connected with pretty much every single, like literally every customer that would come in, um, got me really excited. And I was like, wow, we like saw, and like let me give a little bit of backstory, but at that time Austin had maybe one Indian grocery store in the entire city. So
Wow,
yeah. And like
that's
now if you think
crazy.
about like Austin today, right? Like yeah, you're saying it's crazy. And it's like if you think of Austin today, it's like wow, people are like it's blowing up, it's exploding. And it's like yeah, but before all of that happened, yeah, we had one Indian grocery store, and whenever we wanted to get like even papad, we'd have to like go to Houston and make sure we loaded up on it when we came back. So
Wow.
so like it's like those I got to see the impact that he had. And he's a very fun loving guy and very has a really good sense of like kind of humor, and it's just very like personable. And I was very inspired by him, and I was like, I want to do a business. And I remember I would say that at home, and my mom has a lot of other siblings and they all did some form of business. They all are entrepreneurs. But my mom
Hmm.
was very like growing up, she was very studious and focused on school. And she was like the good child, the one that that your parents are like, yeah, stay focused, stay in your lane, focus on school, study really hard. And she was very good at that. She was very good at learning things, and she still is very good at learning things quickly. So I would always ask her, I was like, Mom, when are we going to have our own business? I want to do something. And so she would
Hmm.
always tell me that, like, well, you can start somewhere. It may not be the thing that you do forever. And we like looked around together, and she was like, real estate is something you can get even at, when you turn 18. Now, back then I was maybe
Hmm.
like 8 years old. So like, that's a long ways away. But I do think that she saw the passion for the entrepreneurship in me, whether it be like
Hmm.
making little like toys and crafts and trying to sell them, or learning like what people like. And um so I think she like part of that had her go into it just to expose me to it. And it was something that she's
Hmm.
never nothing that originally aligned with her interests, right? Like this is someone who is a very scientific biology, microbiology is what her thing was. She worked in a lab.
Hmm.
And so for her to go into real estate was a completely different change, but she picked it up and she ran with it. And by the time I was 10, like I knew how to write a contract, which is like just so I feel so privileged to have like been through that experience early on. So that's kind of what, by the time high school came around, I knew what I wanted to do with the whatever free time I had then. And that was part of like this IB program, which, for those of you who have done it, you guys know that there's a part where you have to do some like volunteer service and like learning hours. And I used those
Hmm.
learning hours to get my license. I took classes during high school, and I got my license like right like a month or two before I graduated high school. And that's kind of how
Nice.
it started.
That's pretty cool.
Uh,
Wow.
Oh, that makes sense. And then that gives you enough time to go from agent to broker because you accumulate all the years of experience and all that at an earlier age. Nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
right on. You got it. So like, yeah, I started, got out, got my license, and I was in college with a fresh license. And so
Hmm.
freshman with a fresh license. And so I kicked it off with trying to um, understand the downtown market, the UT area. I went to UT Austin for college. So I was um, still at home, but nearby. I did move to campus, so like I still like got to have that experience of like kind of living away from the parents. But I was just close enough that if I did want to have like, you know, Gujarati food for dinner, I could go home in 30 minutes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So tell us a little bit more about your first sale that you made. You know, was it memorable? What was your key learnings? I know at this point you're already kind of going through all that process, or maybe you're already doing, you know, passively supporting your mom and some of these things. But when you did something on your own after you got your license, what was that about? How did it feel?
Right. So like with real estate, it's kind of like a ramp up. You have a ramp up period as soon as you start because you have to
I
start learning
see.
how to do business. Getting your license is like the easiest and first step. After that is when the hard work starts.
I
And
see. Hmm.
I think like I had like something that I really got to take advantage of and really enjoyed is having my mom because by that time, like I had gotten my license, she had been doing it for like close to 10 years. So, you know, she had gained a ton of experience. I mean, she was working at a small brokerage at that time, and she had um, grown from being the new person to outperforming everyone, even the broker at that time. And so, I remember when I was on the verge of getting my license, I was like, "Mom, we need to start our own brokerage. You can't just like stay in this one place." And she
Hmm.
was like, "That's fine. You can do that when you get your license, but I want to do this job." And she was like, "I am willing to do this brokerage if you're willing to do all the work behind it." And so she's like, "I just want to transition over and keep doing what I'm doing." And so I was like gung ho, sure, right? Like high school energy, ready to go out and like take on the world, right? So I was like, let's do it. And so yeah, as soon as I got out, like I started helping her with some of the transactions there. But one of them that's very memorable for me is like when I went to UT, is one of my friends. He ended up becoming one of my friends right away. And this guy was going to UT with me. He was just about a year younger than I am, a year or two. And my parents had, you know, with the real estate knowledge that our family has now at that time, decided that like let's go ahead and buy a property around campus and find something good and something that will grow. And Sean will stay there and go to UT like normal. Instead of paying rent, we'll pay a mortgage. So just to like, you know, throw some numbers out just for the fun of it, just keep in mind that like this is 2012, and so we had just purchased like a condo in what was actually zoned in downtown, so not even the campus area, but my mortgage after all HOAs and everything were in there was about 1,200 a month.
Wow.
Which sounds, yeah, which sounds so funny to hear today because that number doesn't exist really. And
Oh my God.
I would tell my friends that I'd be like, yeah, it's this much, and they're like, oh, it's a little more than what I'd usually pay because back then like you could get rent maybe for like 1,000, but I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
but it's gonna be worth. I think it's gonna be worth it like later on. And so I was telling people about this vision that I had that like, you know, at least for the first 4 years, go ahead and you know, convince your parents, get them to try this out. Like a lot of parents at that time were also thinking about investing in the city because their kid was there, and they were like, you know, what can I do? And I was like, why don't you just put them in a place to live at least so that you stop paying rent? Like, you know, even if you do $10,000 a year, that's $40,000 over your college. So that's I kind of got him excited about this idea, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so, you know, we started with that. We went around looking around campus. I showed him all the different places that I knew of and that I had gathered information on over the last few years. And yeah, he ended up picking one of those and lived there for those 4 years. And right after 4 years, I remember he was like, Sean, I'm ready to sell it. And I just remember when he sold that property, he came back to me and he said, he was like, dude, that kind of like changed what changed my life kind of thing. And he's like, he actually has brought me clients over the years just with that story of like how that same money that came out of that property he went and used
Hmm.
to start his own company. And so
Oh
that's when I was
wow.
like, wow, this makes changes. Like this changes like people's lives. This allows people to do the things they want to do. And as someone who is passionate about entrepreneurship, every entrepreneur knows that like the only other thing they're more passionate about is making more entrepreneurs. So and so that got me really excited when I heard that story that he was like, look, because of what you showed me then, I was able to do these things. That's a very like rewarding feeling. And I think one of my first sales that I'll always remember. And it was actually not even that much long ago. I have run into this guy like multiple times. One of them literally just last year, right? So college 2012, let's fast forward to 2022. I ran into him last year in Austin, I was just at one of the popular shopping areas here called the Domain, hanging out
Mm-hmm.
with one of my potential clients who ended up becoming one of my clients. But we were just having coffee and talking about what the process will look like, what they can expect. And this friend of mine like literally showed up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my god, is that you? And he runs over and he goes, this guy is the best realtor, and walks, like, he's like, you need to work with him, and walks off. And I was like, I did not pay him to do that. I was like, but it's
Wow.
really cool to see like the impact that you have, and like how, and this is just real estate, but you can do it in so many other things, like whatever you may be dreaming of, right? Like those all can
Yeah,
have their own impact.
that's amazing. That just makes me think of something which we do a lot in consulting business. Is just that, you're when you're trying to, you're actually better off if you're solving somebody's problem instead of, trying to sell something. So in this way, in your example, you're trying to help your friend out, just trying to figure out what the problem, not quote unquote problem, but what can he get out of the situation, and then in the end, basically making him better off, which is what we also try to do in the consulting business. It's amazing, how that those stories can pan out over the course of next few years.
Yeah, very well said there, Deepam. It's the creation of value, right? So, and
Creation of value, yeah.
any kind of business exchange, if you can create value for someone and they see how much value created for them, they're going to be appreciative of it. So, 100% agree. That's like I think the cardinal rule of business, right? It's create value for someone and you'll never have a shortage of clients.
That
Absolutely.
sounds very, yeah, like that's a good way to put it. And it's at the end of the day, it's like everybody has their own dreams, right? Like someone wants to start a company, somebody wants to start a like, a fashion business, someone wants to travel the world, but like how are you going to achieve those things, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come just by wanting it. You have to do something about it, and it doesn't necessarily all have to be you. Like if you surround yourself around people who want to also do, cool things and have a good experience, which as far as I know is everyone,
Mm-hmm.
then you can work together and find ways to make that happen.
Absolutely, 100%. So, speaking of dreams, you also bought your own house not too long ago. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I assume you're talking about the one that I'm like sitting in right now.
I guess, yeah.
I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a video going on for the ones listening. You won't be able to see the video right now, but yeah, I bought this house about last year. This is actually not my first one though. I have been buying property ever since I got out of college, and I set a goal with I gathered around all my clients and all of my best friends, and I said, hey, I have this goal of doing one property a year. Like that's what we want to try to commit to, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um, let's see what we can do, right? And that was just like kind of at the time it sounds like kind of crazy. You're getting out of college, the first thing you're going to do is get paid, and you're like, nope, I need to save it for a down payment. So that's kind of how it started. And I'd purchased property over the years, and I was like, I will move into the house that I find like that moves me, literally, quite literally. I was like, the one that makes me want to go, yeah, I'm ready to move out, let's go try this out. um that's what I was looking for. And I came across this, like, I mean, I made a lot of connections and friends through doing real estate over the last, several years. And one of them was a small private builder here in Austin, and he was like, hey, like, I'm going to be building out this street, and they're only going to be about 15-20 houses, let me know if you're interested. And I didn't even need to hear anymore. I just said, yep, I'm interested, sign me up. And so, it took a little while. It took them a little bit of time to kind of develop up the land and make sure that everything was in the right place. And then, of course, the actual building process was very exciting. I got to start with with like a base plan, and I got to pick all the little options and things that, especially around that time, like this is around 2019, 2020, a lot of that freedom and privilege was gone because the market had heated up like none other. And builders and kind of across the board, no one was giving away anything. They were like, nope, you're gonna get to buy what I made, or you don't get to buy it. So and I think, but yeah, I just closed literally a year ago. It's been like a year and a few months now. So I've been loving it. I moved in here like last June with one of my best friends from college, and we've just been having a blast.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, right? Especially in the real estate space, right? You've been doing some building out a long-term portfolio of your own. You've been doing a lot of brokerage stuff. What's next for you in that space?
So with the real estate space, like as I mentioned, like I started with like investment properties actually for people. So I would help people get their first rental houses even and start there. So I was like, hey, this is our strategy. I basically took what I learned from my mom and I modified it so that younger people could do it first. And the idea was that like, well, our parents have worked so hard to get us to where we are, right? The classic immigrant family story. And they've given us all these resources, but who's gonna like they built this platform for us, who's gonna take us to the next level? And I was like, well, I saw how this kind of investment process helped my parents' friends. And I saw they've made in their jobs over the last like several years or whatever years that they've been working. And I was like, how do I start that for all of our millennials here and like all of our younger, our generation? And so that's kind of where it started with like investment property. So I purchased over the years like at least one a year, and so that's for the single families, and then eventually made friends with people who did like multifamily as well. They were clients of ours as well, so they were moving in from out of state, and we're like, hey, let's work on this. So that was one way, and then also just through working with other builders, met a lot of other people there too, who also were working on different projects from single family homes, townhomes, even commercial and mixed space area. And then my family as well also got really excited about it. So we started expanding the business into commercial and like development and, factory space and things like that. So the real estate side of things is continuing to grow in like the different areas that you can get into, because real estate is a huge space. Like there's
Yeah.
there's
Mm-hmm.
so many different sub markets and sub like types of properties you can get into.
Mm-hmm.
So for me is to like really just like solidify, just continue growing that space for everyone else and making sure that like the way I kind of work with my clients is not as traditional like a normal real estate broker or agent would. I don't focus on getting as many like people through the door. It's not a volume business. This is just me and my mom, and so our broker is called Homes Realty, and I like to tell people that like we focus on a focus, like we look at a focused set of clients, like a small set of clients, and
Mm-hmm.
we try to treat them the best we possibly can, whether it comes, so we have your full service kind of like covered. It's like, you're thinking about doing an investment property, yeah, I will help you from start to finish. Like you will have it in your hands, we'll rent it out, like hand off the keys and boom, now you can go for it. Or if it's like getting into multifamily, like you just want to like put cash into something and not really think about it day to day, okay, we can take care of that too. It's like, oh, you wanted to start a dental clinic and so you need like commercial space for that, okay, we got that too. Oh, you wanted to build a commercial space, we got that too. So it's like that's what I want to get. I want to get that
Mm-hmm.
um, as kind of ironed out as the investment like single family side is. I want to get every single arm of our business ironed out like that way.
Oh, wow. So it's like basically you're acting as a investment enabler. So for people that are just plunging into that space for the first time or don't have the bandwidth or the resources to handle all that or the network to handle that, you're trying to create a full service provider that is going to act as an investment enabler so people have no worries to get into that space.
Exactly. So we've always been full service for like from the day we started. And when the day we started, it was all like residential stuff. And it was typically, most of the time, it was investments. And so that's the thing that like scared a lot of people, right? When they were starting, it's like, well, if I buy this property, then who's going to rent it out? And I'm like, okay, well, we'll take care of that too. And it's like, well, then what if that person leaves and something happens? Okay, yeah, we'll take care of that too. And so it's like, it got to the point where people really love this like very turnkey approach, because then it just became a question of like, the only way to get new clients was like that they just needed to trust you that you would do your job, and that the results, showed everything else.
Yeah.
And so something that I didn't mention actually earlier is that we so far have not had a marketing budget. We don't actually spend any money on traditional ads, or trying to get like kind of leads or cold calling people or any of that. 100% of our business is word of mouth, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. I am very proud of that, because that just speaks to like what service or product that we've built. And lots of credit to my mom for being an extremely strong partner through all of this. And so I'm very proud of that. And I would love to, I mean, we've been always working whenever we take on a new area of the market or a new type of transaction, we do strive to achieve that same level of quality across, and we won't kind of roll it out until we have. And so like that's something I'm just very happy about, like that approach that we take, and that way it keeps it a lot more personal. Like all of my clients do become my friends, and they all feel like that because it's like I'm focused on you. Like when you are spending time with me, and it's not like oh sorry, yeah, I got someone else who like I gotta push through this real transaction real quick, you know, like it doesn't feel like I don't, it's not like it's like when you go to a doctor's office and the doctor comes in 5 seconds and leaves and you feel a little sad about that. I don't want experience. And I know there are other clinics that do it where they spend a lot more time with you, but I feel like that's something relatable enough that everyone has run into before that they're just like, oh, then they dread the next time they have to come around to it. And in the same way, a lot of people dread that experience when it comes to real estate, if it's moving or investment, and I want to change that.
That makes perfect sense. As you stated earlier, it's not a volume business, right? It's more about the quality of the client and then providing a full suite of services. But it's actually interesting the way you're describing it because you basically have vertical integrated all of the real estate related services, right? Because you have your property management, you have your brokerage piece of it, you have the investment piece of it. It sounds like you probably even do the assessments of whether something's a good deal or not. So all of the due diligence aspect of it. So it's like being like a real estate analyst as well. So it sounds like you're hitting all the key domains required for someone to have the confidence to go into to purchase a property.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think most people think of real estate as like, I need to go find a realtor when I've found my house, or I'm like, oh, I'm thinking of a house or something. And then there's like tons of back and forth that goes on there. Whereas how I like to explain to my client is that like I'm always tuned into the market. I'm always looking out for good deals. And the moment you tell me, hey, I'm looking for something that fits this criteria, I'm going to kind of spin it back around and be like, well, here are these 3 options. Or like, this is what I've got. Or I think this is the next one you should take. And we go from there. So it's a lot quicker, but I like to think of it as like my tech nerd self thinks of it as it's a little more async.
Okay, cool.
Okay, interesting.
Well, here's
Wow.
actually a question. Since you are also working on the software side, right? Have you found a way to merge the two together, combining like, basically automating certain things of your brokerage, processes by using software?
Yeah, yeah, there has been some. So some of it is like, and this is a question that I get asked all of the time. They're all like variations of this question. One is like, have you merged it together? Another one is, are you going to pick one? And another is like, when's your like real estate tech startup coming out? And so, so yeah, so one thing that has like I said at the beginning, at the core of our business is like people, and we try to spend as much time as we can with our clients so that they get that very like high end luxury concierge style kind of service where it's like we're there for you the whole way. And the only way you can really do that is and then like with me it's like doing this and doing another full-time job. So I really do tell all of my friends that I have 2 full-time jobs is by like getting rid of all the time that it would take to run a bunch of paper, all the behind the scenes, like what goes on the screen kind of things. That stuff I've worked on a lot to like kind of automate. And so whether it be like filling like setting up like certain templates or like invoicing or things like that, I do the best I can to use like whatever newest technologies are out there, or at some point I had even built out some to help clients get whatever they need on time quickly, with like the same level of quality that it would any other way. At some point my website actually was even like a Pinterest style board for real estate, which is pretty cool. It was actually like a startup I had founded with my friends in college that ended up becoming my website. And so like there have been a lot of different ways to do it, but at the end, and the focus has always just been people more than technology than anything else. That like how do I kind of like take my client all the way through the entire process where they feel like I've got their back the whole time.
That's awesome. And I think one of the key lessons that I'm taking away from all this, first of all, congratulations to you for kind of making this happen, is and keeping up with the quality, and oftentimes there's so much going on, you want to quickly move on, but despite that, you want to give your clients that personal experience, so the takeaway that I'm taking from this is like active listening, right? So how do you kind of listen actively to the clients, understand their needs, understand their pain points, the budgets that they're working in, and just try to really create a special experience for them. And I think that takeaway applies not just obviously in the realtor business, but in all aspects of our lives, right? Whether it's personal, professional. So if you're just willing to listen actively, you may just, the person in front of you may just give you the benefit of doubt, even if you're not able to solve that problem in that moment, right? They feel happy, and they kind of they feel valued, that they were listened to, even though the problem is actually not solved at the end of the day. And if it is solved, then obviously it's a great deal. So yeah, so that's taken away from that. Okay, so last question, I guess, on real estate. I know we've been talking about it a lot. So so I actually was also reading one of the blogs you written about your own journey with buying your first property. And something that jumped out to me in that blog was the price of the home that you quoted. So basically, just for our listeners, so Sean actually did a math, if you rent a house versus if you buy it and the interest you pay on that. So he basically tried to equate, how much you lose per year. And the one thing that really jumped out to me was the price of the house. This is back in 2018, I believe, right? So it was $300,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. So what I'm curious to learn about is how does that look like right now? It's 2022, and we've gone through a lot, right? So just out of curiosity, like what's that 3,000 turned into?
Yeah, that's really funny. I can't believe you've read that one. That one is that was one of I think my first blog post that I ever wrote, and
Okay.
so far is currently the last one too. But
First and last,
so
okay.
I do need to, yeah. I told myself at that time, I was like, I'm gonna write one a month and see how that goes. But then once again, back to the quality thing, right? My whole thing has been
Mm-hmm.
about like maintaining quality. I was like, well, if I don't have something that like is meaningful enough to write right now, I'm not gonna write it. And so, and then with like work and like with real estate and work going on, it's like a lot of that quality content ends up just being discussed with clients directly. So I'm always just
Okay.
like I like say the same things 100 times, and that's when I decided to write that down into a blog. And I was like, here, this is the story of why if you're on the
Mm-hmm.
fence about buying or not. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think I put $300,000 on that paper. On
Mm-hmm.
actually what's gonna make you laugh a little bit is I was buffering, like adding a little bit of buffer there.
Oh
That house
shit.
actually was about $250,000
Wow.
at that
No
time.
way.
Wow.
And this is
Okay.
in, yeah, that house was purchased in 2017, March of 2017. I might have updated the blog since, which is probably why you might have seen 2018,
I see.
or maybe just wrote it then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like 2017 is how much it was. Today, that house is probably sitting around like $600,000.
Wow.
This is
Okay.
a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, like full-size single-family home. It's got the front yard and backyard, and I mean it's a
Wow.
beautiful house. Still have it. It's a great place.
Mm-hmm.
What's even funnier is actually just seeing rental growth over time. I
Oh
think,
yeah.
do you have the number that I'd quoted in there? I don't even remember. I might have written like 1,600 a
Uh
month or
no,
1,650
it
a
was
month.
1700. I remember
I wrote
that. I
1,700 a
just
month in there.
read it, so
Yeah, so like that same house like rents today for about $2,400 a month. So
Wow, that's a 1% rule based on your purchase price. 1% rule right
hmm
there. So that probably
yeah,
cash flows like a monster now. 5 years later,
so
6 years later.
it takes a little time, but these are the things that I was teaching to my clients though. That I was like, look, I like right now, like you're gonna break even. You might make $50 a month. That's what it was at the time.
hmm
And I was like, it's not gonna seem very exciting. Like, what are you gonna do with $600 at the end of the year? Like, you can't really do much. And so I was like, how about just like just do this for now, focus on like kind of the longer term growth, think about like the appreciation and the things that will come that way. And right now they're all like extreme. I know for a fact they're all very happy with their decisions that they made back then. Everyone who had purchased, especially every single year up until like last year, so and right now there's still people purchasing. It's a great time still,
hmm
but they're all very excited about like what has happened over the years. They've seen, and the thing is like, not only did I teach this strategy, but I lived it. I followed the same thing that I was teaching. I was telling all of my clients that like I'm not
hmm
doing anything different from what I'm showing you, and you can see all the things I'm doing right here. And that blog post was like me just not just showing my clients, it was showing everyone that like, look,
hmm
you can do this too.
So you can basically say that blog post has aged well.
That blog post has aged really well, and it's actually really funny to go back and see the numbers because they just sound so nutty right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I said I guess I said last question, but this is my final last question on
No
this
worries,
topic.
no worries.
On this topic. So, with all these, threats looming on the recession and all these things coming on in the next year or two, how do you see that impacting the real estate market in Austin and but also nationally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One that I
Hmm.
probably get also every other day now. But it is, I mean, you can already kind of see it, right? Like for those who are tuned in,
Hmm.
there are several things going on, like with the economic status, a lot of instability coming from like, Russia, in that area, in that part of the world. Europe is dealing with some of its own economic difficulties, and then the U.S. government also is trying to get a handle of inflation,
Hmm.
and the Fed is doing what it thinks is hoping that like raising rates and kind of restricting monetary policy will help reduce inflation and get us back into a stable ground with hopefully not tipping us into a recession or worse.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's obvious from a real estate side, like it is going to impact. Like there are things that have and some of the impact is already seen. You can
Hmm.
see that like as rates went up, the amount of people who could purchase started kind of slowing down, like cutting down, and there were less buyers in the market,
Hmm.
and inventory started coming up as well. And Austin has for so many years, I don't know which years it was at number one, but it was definitely in the top five, like pretty much every single year for the last like, I don't know, for the last several years that I can remember in
Hmm.
terms of like hottest real estate markets. And I think like even with Austin, we saw an inventory in like supply of like that inventory increase. And we saw like the rate of closings slow down, and we saw like just like from month to month we saw like some sense of like price drops happening, which was
Hmm.
very expected. And like, if you ask anyone who was, in tune with it, would have said, will now tell you, oh yeah, I told you so. But that's like, it's
Hmm.
very easy to say, it's another thing to experience, right?
Of
and
course. Hmm.
and so like we did see like those price decreases happen, and like some of that correction occur across the market. I was actually just talking to my best friend this morning. We both hilariously also work together. I've dragged him along everywhere with me, so, and he seems to be having fun, I guess, so he sticks around. But I was just telling him today that I was like, wow, I'm not seeing the same rate of price decreases happening right now that I did earlier on. And there may be like several other factors going on, but like something to know also is that like these do happen, and as long as like the market is able to kind of absorb that and stabilize, that's important, and that we're not
Got
just
it.
going on a complete downward spiral. Now we still, no one really knows where it's going to go still. Like everyone's
Mhm.
going
Of
to make
course.
predictions, and the ones
Hmm.
who manage to guess it right will say told you so, and the ones who didn't will be like, well, there are a couple other factors. And like, so, but
Yeah.
what I can tell you is like, just at the end of the day, the focus for any investor out there, and this has been the focus for me this entire time, is just look for value. That like
Mm.
it the something that I've
Mhm.
heard, I think I've heard many people say this, but the one who's really drilled it into my mind is my uncle, the same one who started the stores, and he's been like a hero and influence through my life. But he would say like, remember, you make the money when you make that purchase. It's
Yes,
not when you
I've heard
sell the
this
house you
method.
make the money right away. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so at the end of the day, if you're looking for value, you're in a good position. And that's what I encourage all of my clients to do today. That like, if you have the ability to kind of weather this economic change, the instability that's going on, if you are able to buy now, you are getting in at a time when no one else is thinking about it, or like less people are thinking about it at least. And so keep
Mhm.
looking for that value, and that's what I am personally doing the same thing. So like I'm keeping my eyes out and looking for good value to go after.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's like you want to get something below market if you can, and the other opportunity is value creation, right? If you do value add deals where you buy B class and rent out to A class, is another value creation vehicle there. But yeah, I that advice totally resonates with me. I think you're absolutely right. It's the money is made when you buy, not necessarily afterwards.
Exactly. And it, Gitzel, from doing like, I know you've done some work in real estate as well, and like at the end of the day, you have to just it's like a strat. It's just a game. It's like, how are you going to make it work? How are you going to take some whatever you have right now and make money out of it? Is it because you bought it under market, or is it you actually just got? I mean, a lot of times you can also make money. You just buy it at whatever, even if you bought it at the fair price. If you bought value at the end of the day, you have ways to build it up. That like, okay, I bought
Exactly.
it at a
Yep.
good price. I'm going to be able to rent it out. It'll help me weather out the next, 2 years, and then I will do some upgrades, and then just rinse and repeat. And you know that story, and so there are a lot of different ways to play it. There's not just one strategy, and there's not one formula, but buying value makes it a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Deepa, Mike, do you want to move to the next segment, the rapid fire round?
Yeah, actually, let's do that. So, the next segment, Sean, is rapid fire. So, as the name suggests, first thing that comes to mind. Actually, it's pretty easy. It's not that complicated. So let me know when you're ready, and we'll jump right into it.
I feel like y'all will hate me if I keep saying both for everything that you ask me on, but go for it. Just keep in mind that it's probably both, but I'll give you an answer. Don't worry.
Okay. All right, let's go with the one that best suits the situation. Okay, so all right, first one: tea or coffee?
Coffee. I love a good espresso shot in the morning, and that's pretty much all I have. That's it. I also
Awesome.
try not to be addicted to anything, so I will also flip it over to tea every now and then, but coffee is definitely more fun.
Awesome. Mountains or beaches?
Mountains. I love going skiing. I go pretty much every year, and I have since I was 10.
Nice.
Awesome. What's the closest, or do you like fly out north?
Beaches are closer
No,
for sure.
mountains. Oh, yeah, I mean
Yeah,
mountains.
but which is the closest mountain? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So usually I'll fly out now. It's actually pretty easy to get, like, Austin's exploded, and what that means, we have a lot more nonstop flights. So I'll go to Denver. Is pretty easy to go to. That's an anytime thing. I've been to Lake
Right.
Tahoe before for skiing. But yeah, there and otherwise, my family has always driven to New Mexico, and it is a whopping 13-hour drive from here, and we did
Wow.
that for so many years. But that was
Wow.
also one of the most fun times that I've had.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
I think it's changing, but I would have to say night owl because I can do it. But I've been really I've been enjoying at least waking up and going for a walk or something.
Nice. Okay. What's your favorite comfort food?
Pav bhaji, and I literally had it today.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Okay. What's your favorite virtue in others?
Favorite virtue in others? Intentionality. When people are there, they know why they're there. They're doing what they do because they have a reason for it, and they live their lives intentionally, and that's something I even try to do as the best I can.
Awesome. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Pet peeve. Ooh. You know, I don't know if this is the biggest one, but I was just talking about this yesterday. Whenever you ask someone to take a picture of you and your friends, like at some tourist location or whatever, and they take like 50 pictures on your phone, and then you have to go through all of them and see which one actually is your favorite. That one.
Got it.
It's also the worst when it's only 2 pictures, and in one of them, like, you did something really nice, but the other thing doesn't look so good, and then like it's vice versa
Yeah.
on the second picture. It's just like,
Oh man, that sucks.
yeah.
I get it. I get it. Okay. So what's your secret superpower?
Secret superpower. Oh
Mhm.
man. I think I get excited about everything. I guess, like, there's something that I would say is, like, I think I can enjoy any conversation that has, like, meaning, and I think something that I saw my family do really well, like, we all live close together, and we're very, like, we love getting together and spending time together. There are 26 of us total, by the way, in Austin.
Wow, that's a lot.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, can you
That's
imagine
awesome.
what family reunions are like? Yeah. So everybody has something that they're interested in, and not everyone is interested about the same things. And so I went into this phase of being like, well, I want to be able to be just knowledgeable enough that I could enjoy every conversation. I don't have to be the expert in it, but just enough to, like, be able to, like, break the surface and, like, have that conversation. So that's a superpower that I'd say I have, is that I can kind of be friends or talk to anybody about anything, and
That's a
enjoy
good
it.
one. It's a good one. What's a superpower you wish you had?
Hmm. I think I could always use a little more patience.
Okay.
It's like something that comes with being so excited, enthusiastic about the things that you're doing and the things that are happening in the world, is that you just want them to keep happening. And there is an important value in also waiting and being patient. and understanding that these things do take time also. Like, I think that, and it's funny because like I do try to teach it as well to my friends and my clients and everyone around me. And like I have two younger sisters or cousin sisters that I always say sisters because we're so close, but I always try to kind of share whatever I know and like be like, be patient, don't worry, it'll happen, just trust the process. And then here I am myself being like, oh, I wish all these things would happen now so I could just enjoy it, like, you know. And so there's that, like, there's a superpower that I know a lot of other people have, and honestly I've been blessed to have friends who have that. I seem to attract a lot of people who are kind of personality opposites to me, and I think it has to do with growing up with my brother and still getting along very well and being very close. So I naturally attract people that are kind of similar to him, and so
Awesome.
I think like that's something that I wish I had more of.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So this is not a rapid fire. It's more like a fun question. But do people give you a hard time for having a non-Indian name, especially your Indian friends?
Oh yeah. I love it. So there's like,
Is this short for something, Sean? Or is it
so
your
that's
like
one of the
full name?
questions I get all the time. So I always get like, oh, Sean, so what's your Indian name? And I'm like, oh, well, that's, sorry guys, I pulled the rabbit out of the hat. That's all I got.
You do Sean J, so Sanjay.
Yeah, there's no
Great
Sean
one.
J,
I know.
unfortunately.
Oh man.
Yeah, like no, it is Sean. My parents named me Sean. I mean, they moved from India, and I was born here in Austin, right? So they were like, let's give him a name that can be Indian or can also work in America, right? And so Sean, ideally, like Sean, like the Indian name Sean, would
I
also
see.
work. And so that
I
was the
see.
idea. And so they're like, we'll name him Sean, but like in America, because he's born in America, because we're here, we'll spell it Sean.
Ah.
Other Sean's out there, I would like to take this opportunity to remind them that that is the correct spelling. But but that's what they named me, and they're like, this is gonna work. And then it's like funny because it's one of those things that, like, you know, they still didn't grow up here, so like there's like the theoretical way of looking at it, of like their theory was that we'll name him Sean and it'll be Sean here and Sean there. And in practice, let me tell you what happens. I go to school
Smart.
and everyone spells my name Shawn, and then I go to India. I go to India and everyone reads scene. So there's no solution. Clearly, I got like it's either scene or it's Sean.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Wow.
Yeah.
And just for our you know, listeners who don't know Hindi, it's Shan is actually, it translates to pride. Like the literal meaning of Shan is pride. So that's probably, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. Okay. So next question is, what's been your biggest accomplishment in the last 1 or 2 years?
Ooh, that is a good question. I have to like think about this one. I think like, well, something that I've been very excited about for sure is like, I guess it's like a progression. So like it started with like college where I'll build up to it real quick, but basically like in college I used to do this thing with my friends called the Adventure Challenge, and every year we would open up a Google Doc and it would be that summer's Adventure Challenge, and you wrote down as many things as you wanted. It didn't have like a set number. It could be 2 items. It could also be like 15, and those were the things that you wanted to accomplish this you know, this last in that summer. And it got us into the practice of kind of like going for the weird things that like we wouldn't do otherwise. Like I think I wrote down I want to get a motorcycling license and get a motorcycle in my last year. And I wanted to get a boating license and I wanted to be a pilot and all these things. And 2 out of those 3's worked. So there's a fun little 2 truths and a lie game. But that kind of eventually ended up with me doing that every single year for whatever kind of came to mind next, that like, oh, I really want to try this, that'll be really cool. So in the last year, like I think one of the biggest growth moments was like moving into this new house and living with my friend, with my best friend Anish. And so he and I have like gotten into this like, I was told literally just yesterday that it's like a yes theory thing, where you're looking for reasons to go out and do things and say yes and try something new. And in the last year, I think like creating new groups of friends helping others and like get closer to their dreams, whether it be through like real estate or even just through career networking, right? Like I have my whole software side of the world that like I love to help people work. I love to help people, like help to mentor people on and stuff like that. And just the experiences that I've had here, we had like one of our friends live here for about a year as well, so I had a third roommate, and then he used to be one of our interns, and he also joined us for a while. And just the amount of learning I've had from this time, I feel like has been an accomplishment of itself, and just like the amount of perspectives that grew like for me, and that I've gotten into reading recently. It's something that I like recently, I've like in the last few years, but like the rate at which I've been reading and like focusing on feels like an accomplishment as well. It's just like I feel like it's like when you say your brain has been exploding or expanding, you can feel the growth going on. I don't know if that's probably not a real thing, but like you can feel it. And I've been really enjoying that. So that's also been a pretty big
crazy.
one. I think that's what I would probably say. Like otherwise, like really it's just like this getting into this phase of life of like the post-COVID world of like still living your 20s and going on doing the things that you love and with the people that you enjoy doing it with, and forging those new connections, learning more along the process. And also just as important as learning new things is correcting the things that you didn't know properly, right? Like it's very easy to add on new information. It's very hard to delete things that you already thought you learned.
For sure, for sure. So actually, one thing that you stated earlier I thought was pretty interesting, because you mentioned basically collecting different licenses, right? So you got land, water, and air, right? Because you got the motorcycle license for the land, boating license for the water. You got a pilot, like you want to get a pilot license for the air, right? So the last frontier for you is space. So going back to your childhood dream of becoming an astronaut, right? So then you have the whole spectrum: land, water, air, and space.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying is the truth to the lie, right? Like I didn't end up getting the pilot's one. I flew one time. I actually went to the school, and I got to I did a 2-hour lesson that day. I was feeling adventurous because apparently you do 1 hour at a time, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do 2. And you do the whole walk around the plane, learn how all the safety stuff is. Did the takeoff and the landing with the instructor, and I was like, I hate flying. And like that's how it ended. And so I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm in like a Toyota Corolla stuck in the air. Like it was just like so small, and like you can't crack a window open. Like that's not how it works. And so but yeah, exactly. Like I wanted to kind of conquer all modes of transport. I love
All
cars.
terrains,
Yeah.
all terrains.
If you know me, you know that I love cars, and I'm such a nerd about it. And so I was like, I have to try these other things. I just want to feel that wind and like feel the speed that you're kind of going on. But anyone who's done motorcycling also will tell you that like, for someone who just said like you want to feel the wind and experience that speed, is once you get on a motorcycle, you realize that humans were not supposed to go any faster than like 9-10 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's gonna be a interesting thing. I don't know if too many people have that, to have like licenses for all terrains, right? So you have a car license, a motorcycle license, a boating license, a pilot license, and then if there is a license to go into space, that one too. Like
that would
imagine
be
like
so
all
cool.
terrains. Yeah, collecting all those licenses like that.
I think I may be totally fine with just taking the passenger seat for the space one too, but it is very. I mean, I love like skydiving and those kind of like adventurous thrill things. So maybe it's in the cards. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think like that. For someone who has seen, I had the privilege of actually seeing like the last space shuttle land, and
Oh, nice.
I happened to be at a high school internship at NASA at that time when the space shuttle was landing, and it was called a wheel stop event, and it was kind of an end of an era, and I was like, man, what's next? And I remember it just got quiet for a while, right? For so many years we didn't hear anything about space, and it was just like there wasn't much going on that like we saw in the news until very recently. And now there's this like newfound interest in like space travel and tourism and what are we discovering and the new telescope. And so yeah, I hope it happens. I would love to see it someday.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we are reaching towards the end of our conversation, which has obviously been a pretty interesting and engaging one. Sean, thanks so much for that. But before we wrap, I just wanted to ask, do you have any recommendations for our listeners? And the recommendation could be a book or a movie or a TV series, anything, that inspired you or kind of stuck with you.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one. I feel like you were like, I know we're just getting on this call today and like we're doing this all remotely, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like you guys were just with me the whole of yesterday because I think I talked about all of these things yesterday. But I would love to make like a list of, of books, and I want to share that kind of on my Instagram or something somehow, of like books that have literally changed my entire worldview on things. And there are a few of them. I just recently finished one of them that I think is very good, and it's called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. That one kind of helps you think of a way to process um, what's going on in the world, right? Like, how do you use logic and reasoning and make sure that you're believing the right facts and not the wrong ones? And it's a really cool way of taking a science-based approach, and not even science-based. It is it is a scientific approach to this instead of saying science-based.
Mm-hmm.
It is a scientific approach to saying like, does this logically check? And if it does, and if it's proven, then great. And if it's not, it's okay to say we don't know yet, and it's okay to say I don't know yet. We don't have to have the answers to everything, and that's something that's really good. And another book that I found very, very helpful, that I read before Skeptic's Guide, that actually seemed to just go hand in hand, was called Think Again by Adam Grant. And that one really talks about the importance of what the title says, that like we remember the things that we heard maybe just years and years ago, right? When we were little kids, you'll remember the silly little thing that your brother's friend or whatever said. I think it references that in the book. And it's like, how come you remember that, but you won't remember like things you needed for, something that you heard yesterday that was actually like a important fact. And it's that like we are just not in the process of like, we don't have that practice of like rethinking what we know. And we typically run a lot with just what we've been told from the days we were born, right? Like from our young age, we do the same practices. We like think the same things, believe the same stuff. Like, how come, if we're really being scientific and really being thorough about this, we should be testing and retesting what we know and what we believe and what we see. And if you are seeing the right stuff anyway, your retest will get you to the same point, right? And if you're not, and you find out that something, find out you understood something incorrectly, or that you should see something a different way, then find that strength in you to actually make that change and say like, yeah, I was wrong, or I didn't understand that properly. And I think that's something that I've been really working on, and that's this, especially after reading these, but just as a person, to keep going on that. Like, look, I don't have all of the answers, like no one does. We're just doing our best here, but I can tell you what my process is. And in the same way, same thing goes for real estate, right? Like no one can tell the future. No one knows like where everything is going, but this is our process. And like, if we take a left, we'll end up here. And if we take a right, we'll try this. So there's so many different ways to go, right? Just instead of focusing on trying to tell the future, why don't you just come up with a process for managing what's happening now?
That's
Wow,
awesome.
that makes
I
makes
have
a lot
not
of
read
sense.
that, so I'll have to check that out. I have not read
Yeah,
that book before. Cool. This is awesome. So Sean, I did want to give you an opportunity to plug any social media handles that you may want to plug. I know you have a personal one, but do you also have one for the brokerage or some other venture that you'd want to plug for the audience here?
Oh, well, I mean, thanks for that moment. I do have I just have my Instagram that I use for everything actually right now. I don't really do too much advertising as it is, so feel free to connect with me on there and reach out. I love to meet new people and kind of hear your story and understand where you're coming from and find out what you're trying to do. So yeah, I have an Instagram, and I'm sure we'll probably put in the captions or something, but it's S Gajjar, Sgajjar, so S and my last name, and that's on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook, and yeah, I think that's what I usually use nowadays. I mean, like I don't even know how many people use Facebook, but I do have those, and then yeah, as well as LinkedIn. So check me out there too. You can just type in my full name and you'll find it there.
All right,
Awesome.
fantastic. Well, this was an amazing conversation. Sean, thanks so much for joining the podcast for this. If you guys are not already connected with Your Life Unfiltered on Instagram, please be sure to give it a follow. You can also check us out across various social media platforms and streaming services such as Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and now, thanks to Deepam, also now on YouTube. We're officially on YouTube. So,
All
yeah.
right.
So be sure to check us out. And if you could be so kind to leave us a review, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.